If something doesn't change involving Mike Woodson and Bloomington, things could get ugly. So, is change on the way?
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. It is the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goins. I appreciate you being here, making this your first listen or your first watch every single day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by FanDuel. For the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets. If you win your first bet, just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Well, thank you so much for being here. Shout out to all of my everydayers, whether you listen on audio or you're watching us on YouTube. I appreciate you and all of your support of this show. We do have football updates coming up a little bit later in the program. Indiana picks up another portal commit. Believe that puts our roster number at 83. A guy on the defensive side that I think could make a pretty significant impact. So we'll talk about a Power 4 transfer for Indiana, plus two big pieces of news in terms of your receiving core. So we'll have that for you. Plus, with all of this Mike Woodson stuff, how did we get here, right? What in the world has happened? What's this timeline kind of looked like? I'll have that for you as well. But to start the show today, it's simple. It's simple. It's something that I think we all know. It's something that needs to be said. And it's something that Indiana must understand. This entire situation with Mike Woodson as the head coach of Indiana basketball, this could get very, very ugly for several parties, including Mike Woodson. It's already gotten ugly in terms of the fan base because they're chanting "Fire Woody." They're booing him inside his own gym. They're going crazy on social media. We're going crazy on podcasts like this one. The fan base is going berserk, and rightfully so. I'm not saying anybody is at fault in terms of what the fans are saying. Now, if physical actions start taking place, that's a different story. But back-to-back losses against Iowa and Illinois, back-to-back 25-point losses to Iowa and Illinois, and playing basically the same way you've played for the past 2.5 years, yeah, the fan base is in the right here. So it's already gotten ugly in that aspect. But where it's really going to get ugly is the big-time fans. I'm talking about the ones that got this number right here, cha-ching, right? The ones that have the buying power, the spending power. And I talked a little bit about that yesterday, where schools are going to have to now relate and answer to the fans more than they ever have before, because fans have more power than they ever have before. But man, this situation's terrible. Mike Woodson has lost control of his team, of his program, of this university, and he's lost the fan base completely. I still have yet to find an Indiana fan that supports Mike Woodson and wants him to remain the head coach. And I'm not saying you're wrong if you do. I'm saying my point is that person is very, very limited. There are very few of those people right now. He has lost this team 100%. You had kids getting in scuffles and fights and ejections in that game the other night against Illinois because they were so mad they were losing, because they were salty, they were just upset, they were jealous, right? We had dudes get ejected from the game rather than just showing up, and they had more energy and heart and fight at the end of the game in a scuffle against a team that was beating their you-know-what, rather than showing up with that type of energy to play the actual basketball game. That's how you know the mentality is completely gone in the locker room and that he has completely lost this team. And I think Mike Woodson is starting to lose the people up top as well. I'm going to get more into this in a little bit when we ask how we got here. But you remember this conversation that was had at the end of last year, right? Mike Woodson's job was up for grabs. It was on the line last year. They had legitimate conversations about letting Mike Woodson go, and they decided to keep him. And that decision has ultimately come crashing down. He's lost the fan base. He's lost his team. He's losing the higher ups. His recruiting numbers are atrocious. We've talked about that. How many times have you and I sat right here and we have talked about X player from Indiana, top 5 player from Ohio, or top shooting guard in the country has Indiana in their top 10, top 5, top 3, deciding between Indiana and UConn, or Indiana and Michigan State, or Indiana and North Carolina. And we lose almost every time. We got Trent Sisley coming in for 2025. Great. That's it. That's the only one. You had one from the year before. You had one from the year before that. Nate Ament, the best player available in high school basketball recruiting, released his top 11. Guess who's not even in it? We're not in it. He's got schools like Kansas State in his top 11 because nobody wants to play at Indiana right now. Everybody understands that Indiana is a dumpster fire with Mike Woodson as the head coach. So recruiting is at an all-time low. And that's something else that Mike Woodson has lost. I don't understand how you let it get this bad. And I guess I'm not talking about Indiana. I guess I'm just talking about Mike Woodson in general. Like, how do you let it get this bad? You have let this rope unravel so horrifically that you can't put it back together at all. It's just shriveled out of control. And there's no way to put it back together. None. And so if we're thinking that him being fired is almost inevitable, why wait? Could change be on the way? I hope so. I think so. But that's now the question is, okay, if you're going to do it, do you wait? Do you just go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off now to start the coaching search? What do you do? What do you do if you're Indiana? Because the change is going to happen. You cannot and will not bring Mike Woodson back for the 25-26 season. If you do, Indiana's doomed. The fans will not show up. The fans will not donate. They will not support. They will beg on your downfall. And that's not where you want to be. This thing is already ugly, and it could get even uglier for Mike Woodson in Indiana. Is a change on the way? All we can do is hope. All right, coming up here on Locked On Hoosiers, with all of this going on, I teased it a second ago, and I want to dive into this. How in the world did we get here? Like, what? Well, how does it get this bad with Mike Woodson in Indiana, and what can happen to change it? That's coming up next, right here on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by FanDuel. For the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is easy to navigate, and the variety of bets keeps every game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid immediately. No waiting around for your winnings. So whether you're betting on your favorite team or you're just looking to add some extra excitement to the playoff games, FanDuel has you covered. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, welcome back into Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on all things Indiana athletics. Thank you so much for being here and truly making this your go-to spot for all of that. And reminder, this show is free to you every single day, Monday through Friday, bonus episodes throughout the week, sometimes on the weekends as well. So in case you have not seen or heard all of those and you don't want to miss any of those, I got some steps for you really quickly. If you're on YouTube watching on the video side, like this video. First of all, that helps me and helps the show. Gets it out there. YouTube's got some sort of a robot, and liking the video helps it get out there. So if you could do that, I'd appreciate it. Leave your comments down below. Is it time for Woody to go right now? Should they do it right now? Should they wait for him to hang around, finish the contract? What do you think Indiana should do? How do they fix it moving forward? We're talking about that in just a second. So leave those comments down below. And then if you haven't already, I'm asking you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, okay? It's free. It's easy. Takes one tap of your thumb. We're making a push to 4,400 subscribers right now. We're almost there. So I need your help to do that. So thank you so much for that. And also for all my audio listeners, if you're on any of your podcasting sites and platforms like Amazon or Spotify or Apple, you can follow us there, leave us a 5-star review, and turn on those notifications so you never miss a new episode of Locked On Hoosiers. So with this entire Mike Woodson situation, as ugly as it is, and my goodness, it's gross. I mean, I'm trying to relate it to other bad coaching, like coaching debacles, like coaching downfalls, coaching collapses. And there's so many that come to mind, but there's so many that come to mind because of like cheating or violations or off floor issues, right? But this one's just a purely bad basketball coach. Like, this one is just, it made total sense, right? Let's flash back, right? Indiana has had ups and downs over the past, 25 years? Let's just say 25. Let's say in the 2000s, we've had up and down years. You've had some really good years. You've had some really bad years. You've had some great tournament teams. You've had teams that never even sniffed the NCAA tournament. And in these last couple of coaching changes, the question coming into this one was, man, we got to find our guy. We got to find our dude who's going to bring Indiana back. Who's going to bring Indiana back and avoid all the troubles, right? Who's going to be just a clean, good old boy, bring him in, and let's see if he can make this place right. And at the time, Mike Woodson made sense. Mike Woodson made sense. He's an Indiana dude. He loves Indiana. He already has a legacy here. Bring him in, a guy that has coached basketball for a long, long time, and see if he can fix it. And if he can, everything will be fine. He'll be here for the next 20 years is what they thought, right? Well, that didn't work. And it was a gamble. It was a gamble at the time, and you lost. You put your money on a number, you spun the roulette wheel, and you lost. And it was going to be a big payout if it hit. It just didn't, right? His old NBA mindset has gotten him in trouble time and time again in terms of his coaching strategy, his coaching game plan, his in-game changing, his in-game ability to make changes and coach his team doesn't do it, doesn't work. And so that was not a good idea. But I guess we didn't know that. We didn't know that he wasn't going to adapt to the college game, that he wasn't going to be able to actually coach his team and get them prepared to play basketball games. We didn't know that. And what I really do hate is whatever your image was of Mike Woodson, whether you were around during his previous days as a player or not, or whether you've gone back and again, whatever your mindset and your opinion was of Mike Woodson, that's now gone. If it was any sort of positive opinion, no longer. And for anybody that I guess didn't like him, you're just feeding off of that now, I guess. I don't know a lot of people that didn't like him during his time, but you get what I'm saying here. His reputation is done. He is somebody, and I'm saying all of this out of empathy for him. I feel bad. I do. I feel bad for him because, man, when this nightmare comes to its inevitable end, man, he's not going to step back inside Assembly Hall. He's not going to come back on campus. He's not going to be attending games and just shaking hands and kissing babies and waving to the crowd and getting introduced at halftime. Like, no, it's going to take years for this to recover. This is a wound that is deep in the arm. And Indiana has to do several things to try and fix it. And for right now, you've got to remove the thing that's causing the wound. And then, of course, the questions are going to come up. Well, who do you go get, Jacob? Who do you replace Mike Woodson with? More on that coming up on tomorrow's show. So you just have to find a way to easily make this go away. And I hope that Indiana will respect Mike Woodson. I hope that they will allow him to be like, sit him down and be like, look, man, we shouldn't have to say a whole lot here, but we appreciate your time and we want you to feel welcome here anytime. You know what I mean? Like, you want to show him that respect, but you've got to move on because This is not going to work. And here's the problem. I talked about it yesterday. Here's what your upcoming schedule looks like: at Ohio State, at Northwestern, home for Maryland. Okay, not great, not terrible. Ohio State's really talented. Northwestern's playing better. Maryland's getting better as we speak. But then it's that stretch where you play 4 straight ranked games, and 5 out of your 6 games in that stretch are against ranked teams. 17 Purdue on the road, 24 Wisconsin on the road, 20th Michigan at home, 12th Michigan State on the road, UCLA squeezed in there, and 17th ranked Purdue at home. Does Indiana win any of those games? Any of them? I just don't think they do. I mean, maybe beat Northwestern on the road, maybe beat UCLA at home, maybe beat Penn State at home, maybe beat Washington on the road. Purdue sure did. And I don't know, maybe get Ohio State at home. There ain't no way we go and beat Purdue or Wisconsin or Michigan State on the road. Heck no. Or Oregon on the road? Are you kidding me? Absolutely not. And Purdue's going to come into our house and do what they've done the past several years, which is embarrass us again. And so how did we get here? It started out as a great investment. It was a gamble. And if it worked out, it would have been genius. But we've let this thing get so far gone. We're so deep in the negatives now that at some point we got to get up and walk away and go and hit the job, right? Hit the workforce and start earning our money back. And then you have to start moving on, and it'll be a good riddance. It'll be a see you later. And Indiana just has to move on. I just don't understand how you let it get this bad. And even for Indiana too, like, do you not send somebody in there to be like, hey, what's going on? A consultant or something like that? That's always usually a bad sign, but Indiana is a little bit at fault here too. Because what we saw on Tuesday night was downright ugly. The performance was ugly. The fighting was ugly. The crowd's reaction was ugly. And you put that on top of poor recruiting. NIL is still really good. Indiana is still a sexy job, right? But everybody's at fault here. Everybody at the university and in that athletics department is at fault here. You cannot let it get this bad. Something had to change. Somebody had to step in, and so let's have a reality check for a second. And I just don't think that ever happened. I think everybody thought, let's see if he can fix it. Let's see if Woody can fix it. And he couldn't. And it's only gotten worse. And what stinks is I still think this team is talented. Some of you disagree, and that's fine. I think this team is still really talented. Are they Big Ten champions? No. But you put a better coach in there, and this team's going to win some games, and they're going to think about winning the Big Ten championship. Absolutely. I believe that. But that's not going to happen. And so you have dug yourself so deep of a hole in terms of the fan base's support, the national perspective, your recruiting numbers. It's going to take years to bounce back from this. It's like rebuilding your credit score, man. We're like at the teens. And what's a good one? Like 800, right? 800? That's where we are. And you can make your credit score go down a lot faster than you can get it to go up. And that's where Indiana stands with Mike Woodson still as the head coach right now. So all of that to say, could a change be on the way? I sure hope so. I think it's just inevitable at this point. And you start having those conversations of, okay, you fire your head coach. Who do you go get? And we're going to talk about that on tomorrow's episode when we come back. Talking a little football as we got some updates for head coach Curt Cignetti. At least there's good news to talk about on that side. We've had very rare bad news, as I knock on wood there, for Indiana football and head coach Curt Cignetti. A new commitment out of the transfer portal plus 2 confirmations of returnees. We'll have that for you when we come back. Final segment right here on Locked on Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked on Hoosiers is brought to you by Prize Picks, the place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions in winnings, Prize Picks has changed the game in daily fantasy sports. Whether it's the playoffs or the regular season, Prize Picks has made it even easier, easier than ever to win big while enjoying all the football action. Now it's playoff time, and there's no better way to get in on the action than with Prize Picks. Here's how it works. You simply pick more or less on at least two players. And if your pick hits, you could win up to 1,000 times your cash. Yes, that's right. 1,000 times your money just by making a few simple picks. I do it all the time, man. I get on Prize Picks every day between Taco Tuesday and Flex Friday, plus the games throughout the week. I'm always on Prize Picks, and it really is awesome. I'm looking at Lamar Jackson, right, who's going to be moving on for the Ravens. Could he get a 250 passing yard line? You could think if he goes over or if he gets more or less, you could take Lamar Jackson. How about the Kansas City Chiefs? Maybe Travis Kelce with receiving yards. Numbers looking right around 70 right now, so you could go more or less on that as well. You'll get your winning super fast. Sometimes it's as little as 15 minutes. That's what Prize Picks is all about. Ready to run your game this football season? Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 just for playing. Don't wait. Take your game to the next level with Prize Picks. Prize Picks, run your game. Final segment here on Locked On Hoosiers. Thank you so much again for being here and truly making this your go-to spot for all things Indiana athletics. And while the doom and gloom of basketball season is looming large, we do have some more football news and good news for Indiana football, as the portal may be slowing way down and may be closed for most participants. There's still names in there. They can still commit to places, right? The calendar's all wonky. Did you see where the SEC coaches are trying to get that changed? And I think that may be something that sweeps through college football. More on that at a different time. But Indiana gets a commitment from a transfer defensive back from NC State, Devin Boykin. It's a familiar name. It's a guy that has played pretty good football at NC State. Unfortunately, it was a few years ago. He missed the entire 24 season due to a knee injury, but his 23 and 22 seasons were really, really good. Listen to some of these stats from the NC State transfer defensive back. 45 games played, okay, from 2020 to 2023, had 117 tackles, 4 of those for loss, 4 picks, 11 passes defended, and 1 forced fumble and a fumble recovery. Again, 117 tackles, 4 interceptions, 11 pass deflections, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. That is spread out over several seasons. And again, he did not play in 2024. Sounds like he's going to come in and fill the safety slot for Indiana, though, does it not? 5'10", 195 pounds. He is going to come in and I think fill that safety spot. Now, starting safety, I don't know, but I think he's got the talent. He's played the rover spot. He's played the safety spot. Heck, he's played nickel a little bit in college too. So he's got the ability to move around a little bit back there. And you bring in somebody who's very experienced. Yes, he is coming off of injury, but you have the ability to put him in the secondary if you're Kurt Signetti and say, all right, let's see where you fit the best. Let's see what we need, and then we'll place you based off of that. Question is, what's his performance look like off of what I believe to be a knee injury? And yeah, you kind of have to wait and see and just see how it goes. And if he turns out, then great. You use him and you take advantage. And I think he is good enough, right, as another Power 4 transfer. He's good enough to start for you and be a super impactful player. How about that, though? Another Power 4 transfer. I remember there were a lot of fans who were concerned. They were upset that Indiana wasn't getting enough Power 4 guys. And we were too busy getting these group of 5 players and these no names that nobody knew about. And we needed more big-time players to compete. A guy like this, Boykin, is a great example. You go get somebody who, before his injury, was playing pretty good football there for the Wolfpack. And now he's going to be a key contributor, possible starter on the Indiana defense. Love this addition of Boykin from Devin Boykin from NC State. Did also want to mention that I saw from the Hoosiers Connect account on X, which is, of course, the official NIL collective of Indiana athletics, that they have officially signed back for another year through their collective Omar Cooper and Elijah Surratt. We knew they were coming back to Indiana, but this is just more of a confirmation that both guys are coming back. Both guys are getting paid, and they should be very happy with their next year at Indiana. Omar Cooper retweeted it. And he said, let's run it back, Hoosier Nation. And then Elijah Surratt said the same thing. Unfinished business, Hoosier Nation, let's run it back. So it's good to see that your biggest players are not only coming back to the team, they still have a good relationship with the NIL collective, and they're wanting to be here for another year. And my guess would be that they're getting taken care of, and they should, because Indiana's NIL is continuing to grow on the football side, and we know that it's good on the basketball side, which has led to so many of the frustrations from Woody in terms of recruiting, because NIL is not a problem. I don't care what anybody says. Indiana does not have an NIL problem. And you can see that right now on the football side of things. With Omar Cooper and Elijah Surratt both re-signing with Hoosier Connect, the NIL collective for the Indiana Hoosiers, just giving us confirmation and really reassurance that both of those guys will be back for Indiana this next season. But again, you get a transfer portal addition, Devin Boykin, the defensive back, a safety, can play nickel, can play rover for Indiana. He'll be a huge, huge piece of the Indiana defense for 2025. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers. Thank you again so much for being here. Really, really appreciate everything that you do for this show. We're having a lot of fun. A huge episode coming up tomorrow. Possible names that Indiana could go after if Mike Woodson is let go. We'll have that coming up for you on the Friday edition of Locked On Hoosiers. Until then, Hoosier fans, stay safe. I'll talk to you later.